A legal question that sometimes comes up for drone pilots is whether you can legally fly over private property and whether a property owner has any recourse against a drone pilot. It comes up on a daily basis for folks like DJ Audits in the UK on his YouTube channel, where he educates property owners and security guards on this issue, whether they want to know or not. Hi, my name is David Fraser. I'm an internet, privacy, and technology lawyer with the Canadian law firm McGuinness Cooper. I also teach internet and media law at the Schulich School of Law at Dalhousie University. Incidentally, I'm also a recreational drone operator. I've advised many other operators and have experience with investigations by Transport Canada related to RPV UAV activities. I've been an invited speaker on this topic at various drone expos and to media lawyers. I would not call myself a drone lawyer, but I think I know more about this than probably most lawyers. I have another YouTube channel where I post my drone videos, mostly of beautiful Nova Scotia. I'll put a link to that below. And I should note that what I'm about to talk about is applicable to Canada only. The law may be similar in other places, but I only practice Canadian law. Any legal claims like this would be governed by the common law, which is the body of law applied and interpreted by judges. There are no statutes passed by Parliament or provincial legislatures that we can look to that are directly applicable for the answer to this question. And we really don't have any reported cases in Canada that deal with trespass claims involving drones. The one case that comes closest is Reynolds Deepwater Recovery Limited from the Supreme Court of British Columbia. In that case, a drone operator and environmental activist was sued by a shipbreaking company for trespass and nuisance, among other claims. It started when she sued the company, alleging that they stole her drone and returned it damaged. She also alleged assault and harassment. The company filed a counterclaim alleging trespass, nuisance, invasion of privacy, and the illegal operation of a drone. She then applied to have the company's claims thrown out as a strategic lawsuit against public participation. The court didn't address whether flying the drone over the property was actually trespassing. Now, assuming this goes to trial, we'll have to wait and see for a first-of-a-kind decision in that regard. But that doesn't mean that the courts haven't considered whether a property owner owns the airspace over their property. There's a case called Dido and Alberta Power Limited, which was between a property owner and a power company. The power company constructed a power line on the municipal road allowance along the side of the plaintiff's land. The poles themselves were 2 feet outside the property line, but the cross arms for the conductors and attaching wires at the top of each pole protruded 6 feet into the airspace over the plaintiff's land. It went to the Alberta Court of Appeal, where the only question was whether that intrusion above a plaintiff's property was a trespass. Now, if you're interested in geeking out about this question, the Court of Appeal decision is for you. Justice Haddad had to go through all the old authorities and started with this really old legal maxim. I won't try to pronounce the Latin, but essentially it means whoever's is the soil, it is theirs all the way to heaven and all the way to hell. Essentially, if you own the land, you own the skies above it and the dirt below it. Now, this saying has been traced back to the 13th century, long before there was any kind of aircraft. Since then, there's been much litigation that has ultimately scaled back the principle from the legal maxim. The Alberta Court of Appeal favorably quoted from a 1977 English case called Bernstein and Skyviews. Though it's from decades ago, it did deal with a case where the defendant flew over the plaintiff's country house for the explicit purpose of taking photos of the property. In this case, the English Court of Queen's Bench said, quote, "The problem is to balance the rights of an owner to enjoy the use of his land against the rights of the general public to take advantage of all that science now offers in the use of airspace. The balance is, in my judgment, best struck in our present society by restricting the rights of an owner in the airspace above his land to such height as is necessary for the ordinary use and enjoyment of his land and the structures on it, and declaring that above that height he has no greater rights in the airspace than any other member of the public." So your exclusive rights to the airspace over your property only extend as high as is necessary for your usual enjoyment of your land and whatever's built on it. So if you currently have bare land and then you build a 5-story structure and put up a windmill, then the airspace that you exclusively control goes up. The Alberta Court of Appeal also quoted from a 1946 decision of the Supreme Court of the United States called United States and Cosby. In this case, a farmer's farm was located close to an airport, and the planes flying over the farm were hurting and even killing his chickens. Here's what the Supreme Court of the United States said. The landowner owns at least as much of the space above the ground as he can occupy and use in connection with the land. The fact that he does not occupy in any physical sense by the erection of buildings and the like is not material. while the owner does not in physical manner occupy that stratum of airspace or make use of it in the conventional sense, he does use it in somewhat the same sense that space left between buildings for the purpose of light and air is used. The super-adjacent airport at this low altitude is so close to the land that continuous invasions of it affect the use of the surface of the land itself. We think that the landowner, as an incident to his ownership, has a claim to it, and that invasions of it are in the same category as invasions of the surface. The court concluded that if you permanently erect something above somebody's property at a height that they might use the space, then that is trespassing. Quote, in any event, they serve to make clear that intrusion by an artificial or permanent structure into the airspace of another is forbidden as a trespass. The part that matters for drone operators is transient use of the airspace at a height unlikely to affect the landowner. That's not a trespass. Now, the door is still open for consideration of intrusions at lower altitudes. I think the cases would lead to the conclusion that flying a drone above somebody's property but at a low level, like below the roof line, would be a trespass. But it can be something called a nuisance. A nuisance is interfering with someone's enjoyment of their property. The interference has to be substantial, and I think it would have to be pretty outrageous or regularly repeated. So I can imagine a scenario in which someone has a backyard pool with a privacy fence around it. If someone hovered a drone over the pool while people are sunning themselves, the presence of the drone could interfere with the usual enjoyment of the pool. And the nuisance can be more than just a mere presence there. A court could take into account the noise made by the drone. I'm pretty sure if I installed a dozen of these drone hangers in my backyard and ran drone sorties from them 24/7, my neighbor would have a case that I've created a nuisance. It should also be noted that serious interference with someone's lawful enjoyment of their property can also be a criminal code offense of mischief. I think it would have to be pretty serious, and I can't find any cases that have considered drones as causing such mischief. If you've made it to the end, you're likely someone who should subscribe to this channel. I try to put out a new video every few weeks, so if you're interested in this sort of content, please click the like and subscribe buttons. There's a bell thingy somewhere to get notified about new episodes. Also, leave a comment if you have any suggestions for any other topics to cover, and of course, feel free to share this with anyone who you think may be interested in hearing about Canadian drone, tech, and privacy law. Thanks for tuning in.